Hi, this is Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, right back here on WagerTalk TV with your college football top 25 preview for week 2 this Saturday, September the 9th. Going to look at what I consider the 5 biggest college football games this Saturday. We have 2 true head-to-head top 25 matchups, and then I'm going to give you the 3 bonus games that were just a bit outside for making the top 25 cut, but are very interesting matchups to talk about. I'm going to give you my 10,000 game simulation. My database runs 10,000 simulated games. It takes several days to run it. It comes out with an average margin of victory. I'm going to give you that in all 5 of these games. Also let you know where I think the play is, where the situational advantages are, and also look at some over-unders as well. Some great information free for you right here on Wager Talk TV. Hey, if you're finding it useful, do me a quick favor. Thumbs up, like, and leave me comments below. I read all the comments. I reply back. Let's win together here in week 2 college football. All right, last week I did the week 1 preview here, the top 25 video, and there was only one true top 25 game. That was that huge LSU Florida State game. I mentioned I thought Florida State was a live dog, and they obviously looked pretty good. But I also gave you 4 other games last week in which I thought they were close to making the cut, including that Duke-Clemson game. And I mentioned, hey, if Duke, could be ranked at some point this season, I didn't necessarily think they're going to win outright, but I did think that line was too high. So that's what I'm going to do again this week. I'm going to look at the 2 top 25 true games and then look at some games in which the teams pulled the upset. I think they will be ranked next week. All right, we're going to get to that Alabama-Texas game. Obviously, that's the biggest game of the week, a true top 25 matchup. But the other top 25 matchup probably could win some bar bets with this one here as you head into the weekend is a surprising one. It's number 20 ranked Mississippi, Ole Miss, at number 24 Tulane at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN2. This is one of the only 2 true top 25 matchups, Ole Miss, Tulane. But, Tulane, after winning just 2 games a couple years ago, went 10-2, pulled the upset against a shorthanded USC team in the bowl game. So obviously Tulane enters with a ton of momentum this season. They deserve to be ranked top 25. Last week, a small 6-point favorite against South Alabama, a dangerous South Alabama team, and Tulane still won by 20. So obviously they weren't getting much respect from the odds makers last week. And once again, it appears to be the case this week as my database, my rescoring simulation, 10,000 game simulation, has Mississippi winning on average by 6.5 points. As we check the Wager Talk live odds screen, currently Mississippi is a 7.5 point favorite across the board. There are a few sevens, minus 115. It opened 6. It's up to 7.5. So it's crossed right over what I think the true number should be. So maybe at minus 6, there's a little initial value with Ole Miss. Now at 7.5 or more, there's actually a little bit of line value with Tulane. Heavy move on the total. Open 62.5. It's up to 66, even 66.5 now, even a 67 out there. And I would agree with the over. Hard to make an argument against it. Ole Miss was just explosive last week in their season opener against Mercer. They showed no mercy against Mercer. As a 35-point favorite, they won 73-7, over 500 passing yards, over 660 total offensive yards. I think both offenses hold the edge. Both offenses return a lot of their talent from last year, and it makes sense why the sharp money in this game has been on the over this week between Tulane and Ole Miss, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN2. Now, there's one other true top 25 head-to-head matchup. That, of course, is the big one Saturday night at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, and that is a battle of 2 teams that are highly ranked. Number 11, Texas, at number 3, Alabama. And it's technically a revenge game for Texas, as they lost 20-19 last year. Huge line difference here. Last year, Alabama was a 21-point road favorite in that game. Now they're only a 7 to 7.5 point home favorite. That's a 14-point swing, and then when you factor in home field, it's more than a 14. It's more than a 2.5 touchdown swing when you factor in home field each way. One thing I'll say is, revenge works better, whether it be college basketball or college football, with home teams and with the better team. So Texas has revenge, but they're the road team, and they're the slightly weaker team in this game. And the more I've looked at this game this week, you can almost make a case that the revenge really motive almost favors Alabama. They were fortunate to win that game last year. In fact, the yardage was 374 to 371. It was dead even. Texas got a late field goal with a couple minutes to go to take the lead. Bama had to drive the field with time expiring to win the game by 1 point, 20-19. So even though technically it's a revenge spot for Texas, I almost think you can make an argument it's a more focused spot for Alabama. And Bama has been much better at home the past few seasons than on the road. They've yet to really have a bad game at home. Most of their bad games, including that Texas game last year, and some of their other recent losses, have been away from home. So that situation is different as well. My database simulation, I did a preview for this back on Monday for Wager Talk TV, but I didn't have the database simulation run. It takes several days for the numbers to run. We get those midweek. 10,000 game simulation, Alabama 12.5 point average victory. So this line is a little bit short based on my database model. And as I mentioned, it's been 7 most of the week, but as we head closer to the weekend, we're starting to see some 7.5s out there. If you like Texas, I would wait and make sure you get a 7.5. There are some available now. If you like Alabama, I'd play it sooner than later and lay the -7, as it looks like this line is climbing higher. As far as the total in this game, last year, 64.5 was the total, stayed well under 20-19, 39 points. This year, it's 10 points lower, 54. But even with the huge adjustment down, and it does seem like maybe a little bit of an over adjustment, I still think the under is the way to play it. And that's just based purely on the coaching matchup. Steve Sarkisian, former offensive coordinator under Nick Saban. Obviously, Saban knows Sarkisian, his offensive ways pretty well. And that was evident last season when they held him pretty much in the red zone in check. And same thing with Nick Saban. I think Sarkisian has a little bit of a game plan edge against the Alabama offense as well. And that was apparent last year. Both teams struggled to punch the ball in for touchdowns, even though they had over 370 yards each. That normally would equate to a higher scoring game than 20-19. The final score was still very low. And I think, once again, game plan wise, I think both defenses have a little bit of an edge in this game against opposing offenses. One other stat I'll throw out, Nick Saban, I believe, is now 28-2 straight up against former assistants. So once again, hard to see Alabama losing this one outright at home. And even though it's a revenge spot for Texas, I think you can make an argument it's actually more of a focused revenge spot for Alabama. It's one of those rare situations where a team wins, but actually it's probably going to be the more focused team. Hey, let me know your thoughts on that game in the comments below. It's the biggest game of the week, Bama, Texas. Let me know your thoughts, which team you think has the motivational edge, and how much of a home field road difference does it really make for Alabama. In recent years, it's been pretty extreme. All right, those are the two true top 25 matchups on Saturday. Ole Miss, Tulane, and, of course, Texas, Alabama. I'm going to give you 3 bonus games here on the Saturday card, and games that were just a bit outside the top 25 in just a moment. Quick reminder, my official best bets are available right now at WagerTalk.com. 3-1, 75% last week in college football, week 1. Looking to have another huge weekend here in week 2. And it's no surprise, last year nobody won more money in college and pro football sides combined than I did, up over 64 units last season, ranked number 1 at WagerTalk.com. And the NFL starts this weekend as well. Hey, don't forget about my NFL Fade the Public video. Yes, week 1 edition will be available this weekend. Yet another reason not only to hit subscribe, but hit that bell for instant alerts when my Fade the Public video goes live this weekend here on Wager Talk TV. By the way, if you'd like to get the next 3 weeks of football, you can do so for just $7 a day. No promo code needed. It's on my page right now. 3 weeks of football, college and pro combined, for just $7 a day. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut WT.buzz/SM. All right, let's look at 3 bonus games for you. What I did here was I took ranked teams against teams that were just a bit outside the top 25. And the first one goes at 12 p.m. noon Eastern on ABC Saturday. Number 10, Notre Dame against unranked NC State. By the way, all 3 of these games I'm going to talk about, we've got ranked road favorites against unranked home dogs. So in all 3 of these situations, if the home dog could pull the upset, I think they will be ranked next week. And NC State is getting some additional votes. They're right outside the top 30 right now. As we look at the Wager Talk live odds screen, Notre Dame currently about a 7.5 point favorite across the board. Totals around 50.5. Only about a half-point move from the openers on both the side and total. We've seen very little movement in this game. And I think the point spread, for the most part, is pretty much spot on. My database rescore simulation has Notre Dame winning by 9. So 7.5, 9, not a big difference. Now, if this line does drop to 7 or less by kickoff on Saturday afternoon, then I think there is some value at that point with Notre Dame -7 or less. The one edge the Irish do have in this game, and what might very well make the difference, is the rushing game on the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame, of course, has played 2 games now. They played Navy over in Ireland back in week 0, 42-3 win, very impressive win. Of course, they had the entire summer to get ready for Navy. And then last week against Tennessee State, 48-point favorite. They win 56-3. So big step up in class here and on the road for the first true road game. Meanwhile, NC State last week, little lackluster 24-14 win last Thursday against Connecticut, but UConn has improved the last couple seasons. They're not the bottom feeder they used to be, and that was a huge home game for UConn, one of their bigger home games in recent years. So I think North Carolina State showed okay in that game, but what concerns me is they only gave up 160 rushing yards, but they gave up 6.2 yards per carry. Notre Dame on the season is averaging 6.3 yards per carry and allowing just 2.6. So it does look like Notre Dame has the rushing edge. And once again, based on my rescore database model, the line is a little bit short. I favor Notre Dame by 9 in this game. Current line is 7.5. All right, that game goes early at 12 noon Eastern. Another game in which we have a road favorite in the ACC. Similar situation here is, a home dog in the ACC. We have a road favorite from the SEC, and that's number 23 ranked Texas A&M at unranked Miami of Florida. And just like NC State, Miami of Florida is cracking that top 30 with some additional votes. This game goes, by the way, at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. And Texas A&M is a team that was very good to us last week. As I mentioned, I went 3-1 on my best bets in week one for my clients at WagerTalk.com. And one of those wins was a best bet on Texas A&M laying the 38 in their 52 to 10 win against New Mexico. And I think this is obviously a step up in class, but it's also a step up in class for Miami of Florida as they played Miami of Ohio. And they won that game 38-3, but they're actually only a 16.5-point favorite. Miami of Ohio is a decent team this year. So I thought both teams showed well last week. They both went straight up and against the spread winners for their backers. So the question becomes, where is the value this week? Let's look at my database. My rescore database model, 10,000 simulated games, has Texas A&M winning by just 1.8 on average. So that's just a 2-point win on average for Texas A&M. And that means the line value is with Miami of Florida. If we look at the Wager Talk live odds screen, Miami of Florida currently a 4-point favorite across the board. That is a little bit down from the opener of 5. Once again, I thought 5 was too high. I project just a 2-point win for A&M. So there is some value, some line value with Miami of Florida. And while it might only be 2 points, it's covering 2 very key numbers, 3 and 4, both critical numbers with football betting. Miami looked really good on the ground. Miami of Florida, 250 rushing yards last week, almost 7 yards per carry against Miami of Ohio, held them to just 2 yards per carry. So I do think they might have the better ground attack here against the Texas A&M team that ran for just 134 yards last week and just 4.6 yards per rush. Even though they had that huge win, 52 to 10, they only gained 411 total yards. Miami had 493. Also a revenge spot for Miami. They lost 17-9 in game 3 last year at A&M as an 8-point dog. Now they're just a 4-point home dog. So revenge spot, and the point spread is too high. I like Miami of Florida in this game at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. And the final game for Saturday goes Saturday night, number 13, Oregon at Texas Tech, 7 p.m. Eastern on Fox National TV. And this is a situation in which the line has definitely been adjusted based on last week's results. Look-ahead line on this game was going to be 3.5, Oregon. It's now 6.5. And that's because Oregon looked fantastic last week. Meanwhile, Texas Tech, a bad loss at Wyoming as a 12-point road favorite, lost the game outright, 35-33. All passing, 338 yards passing, only ran for 93 total yards. A lot of sack yardage, obviously, is accounted into those rushing numbers, but still, Oregon, 348 rushing yards, 381 passing yards. They had over 720 total yards of offense in an 81-7. You heard me right, 81 points scored, 7 allowed against Portland State. Now, they were a 47 points favorite against a mediocre FCS opponent, but still an explosive offensive effort. So the question becomes, is this an overreaction? Well, look at my database rescore model, and 10,000 game simulations has Oregon winning by 9.5 points on average. So even though this line's about a field goal higher than what it would have been a week ago, it's still actually a little bit short at 6.5. My database simulation has Oregon winning by 9.5 on average. Question is, will Texas Tech bounce back? Are they better than they showed last week? They lost that game as a 12-point road favorite. They actually had the turnover advantage, +1 in turnovers. Only ran for 93 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, as I mentioned. So it looks like Oregon has a substantial edge in the line of scrimmage. To put it in perspective, every time Oregon ran the ball or threw the ball last week, they averaged a first down, which is incredible. They averaged 10 yards per pass attempt, and 10.2 yards per rush attempt came out to 10.1 yards per play. So every single play they ran last week averaged a first down. That's how you score 81 points in a football game. We'll see if they can do it again this week against a much tougher opponent in Texas Tech. All right, those are what I consider the 5 biggest games in college football this week, week 2, Saturday, September the 9th. Hey, leave me some comments below. Let me know what you think are some of the big games and where you think there's some value. Agree, disagree with this top 25 analysis. I gave you the numbers. I gave you the situational reasoning. Hey, look, that's part of the handicapping equation. There's a lot of other factors as well. And my official best bets are available for my clients. You can get them too right now at WagerTalk.com and get the next 3 weeks of college and pro football combined for just $7 a day. No promo code needed. It's a 3-week, $147 package. Here's how it works. Each week is $49. That's $7 a day. You get the next 3 weeks for just $49 a week. That's $147. And you get every football best bet I have in college and pro for 21 straight days and nights for one price. Check it out right now. 75% last week, and the NFL starts now this week. Last year, number one combined college and pro football sides at WagerTalk.com. Nobody won more money in sides last year in football in 2022. I'm looking to do it again in 2023. Get that great deal, $7 a day for the next 3 weeks of football. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut WT.buzz/SM. Once again, thumbs up, like if you found this useful. Hit subscribe and hit that bell for instant alerts when my NFL Fade the Public video goes live this weekend for week 1. And leave me some comments below. I read all the comments and I reply back. I love the support here on WagerTalk TV. Let's win together. Have a great Saturday, and I'll talk to you again soon with Fade the Public for Sunday.